digital trends marketing coming up now. We all want to know what's happening for the future. We want to plan ahead for what's happening in the future. So the digital marketing industry is changing faster than ever. And those who don't adapt with these times are losing market share. We can all feel it. It just moves. We wake up the next day and something's changed from the day before. So where should marketers be focusing their efforts? The big question, probably one of the big questions we're all here today for. What strategies are the experts seeing getting the best results? Like, we want to know what's working. We don't be wasting time with things that don't work anymore. In our next session, we're going to get up to speed with the latest industry insights, trends and predictions for the future in this panel discussion with some leading digital marketing experts. To introduce our fantastic panel this afternoon, please welcome the Chief Executive Officer of Banter Group, Valentina Borbone.
Hi everybody, thanks so much for having us here today. I've been here from this morning, so I've got a good handle on what everyone's been talking about. Please introducing my panel members. We've got Claudia Sagrapanti from Optus. She's the Business Program Manager, Marketing and Product. And I've also got Imogen Callister from realestate.com.au, who's a brand specialist. So I've had the pleasure of working with these ladies over the years as well. I have my own marketing agency called Banter Group, and I also have a digital marketing training company called Speak Group, because I hear constantly that I don't know how to speak digital, so I'm trying to teach people digital, and I've taught that for about 10 years. So coming today to be able to nut out exactly what top trends look like in digital marketing, I tried to steer away from some of the most obvious. So you won't hear omni-channel today. You won't hear programmatic media today. Hopefully you've had enough of that in a day and a half that I don't need to repeat some of those as well. I'm also mindful of panel discussions can sometimes drag on, so I want this to be as interactive as possible. So don't wait until the end to ask a question. Throw your hand up. Be absolutely delighted that I don't have to throw the cube at you, because I will miss you and hit somebody else in another direction. So put your hand up, someone will come to you and we'll be able to kick off the questions with you as well. So when we had to shortlist the main areas of trends, there's probably 200 different trends that I could talk about at any one time. I'm fortunate enough we're going to cover 9 today. And the very first one is all around social capital. So what I worked out looking at some of the trends is how much crossover there is between keywords, personalisation, data and privacy. It all starts to dovetail into one. Social is just one channel, but it's a humongous part of the puzzle. So if I'm looking at trends, I'm going to start with social capital. So does everyone know what social capital means? What it is? Awesome. It's a good way to start. Social capital is how you keep your finger on the pulse in terms of how your customers feel about you as a brand and what's actually important to them. And yes, social channels are what's delivering a lot of that social capital, but what we're seeing is a huge shift with influencers and micro fans or super fans as well. And I'm wondering if the super fans have now lost control, because if brands are really putting all of the power into the fan, you've got to remember that that fan can easily become a detractor at the same time. So make sure that you're being careful about that as number 1 tip. So join you ladies.
Sit down.
We're seeing Instagram as one of the biggest winning platforms in terms of a rise from social capital. And one of the big things that are coming out from mostly Insta and the decline of Facebook, I can certainly say that. We've got 16 million people on Facebook in Australia, and yet we're seeing numbers starting to decline. Is it an absolute dreadful mess? Not a chance. Find me another platform with 16 million Australians on it and I'll use that as well. But we've got no one that even comes close. So if I'm looking at Instagram and the super fan and some of the changes that I've started to see in the market, one of the big buzzwords is authenticity. Have you guys all heard this too? We all need to be authentic. So my first question, Imogen, authenticity. What does authenticity actually mean?
Firstly, does anybody else want to be Insta famous, or is it just me? Just me?
Oh, no, I do.
Okay.
I do.
Okay, cool. So authenticity is such a buzzword and it gets thrown around like ridiculously, right? But the key is understanding authenticity is in the moment. It's real content, right? Social media is built around social interactions. And unfortunately, we live in a world now where our feeds are becoming more and more and more cluttered with ads. And nobody wants to see an ad in their feed. Facebook is getting so much better at allowing its customers to get rid of ads. And if you are not showing in the moment and real authentic content, it's one of the things that Mark Zuckerberg announced at the F8 Summit. He said that he was going to reduce permanence on his platform. What is that? Stories. Now, I was at Facebook just 2 weeks ago. They confirmed for me that Stories, that little circle buzzly thing, which I'm sure all you digital marketers know, has higher engagement than the feed now, both on Instagram and on Facebook, which is incredible, isn't it? So there's a reason why reality TV exists, because we're creeps and we like watching other people, right? And that is the truth. We love watching other people. And what content are you putting out? Is it real, everyday content that people will be inspired and entertained by? Or is it boring ads?
Claudia?
I find the whole topic of influence really interesting, and particularly, I guess most of you would have seen it, the whole thing about the Byron Bay Murphys, the mums who surf and are very carefully curated in linen and in different, colours from cream to rose to terracotta or something. So to me, that is when you're talking about authenticity, it is the exact opposite of authenticity. And the brands that use those type of influencers, I think, are at risk of demeaning their message as well. So I have a real problem with that term of influencers. But certainly in terms of social capital, what I think has been really interesting, one of the best campaigns I've seen recently, and it's not really a campaign, but it's more of a positioning investment, is Westpac with their separation. Has anyone ever seen it's aimed mainly at women, it's about separation and divorce. They've got a range of long form, video content, articles, checklists, guides, and to me that is really the best example I've seen recently about a brand using social capital to position themselves as a caring, financially aware brand that can help people going through traumatic and financially stressful experiences. So to me, that's really the fantastic exemplar of the social capital that you're talking about. I mean, one of the other ones I think is really interesting is there was an Arnott's campaign that got launched at the end of last year, which is called Open Something Real. And again, that was using different formats. It was the channel was mainly their social media channels. It was 2-minute video. And what it was about really just trying to position biscuits as part of the human connection. So making connections and being honest and authentic. And where I thought it was really sweet was bringing families, friends, mother and daughter, grandfather, grandchild into the studio and reading a range of text messages that they would usually send, like the really boring stuff like what's for dinner and blah, blah, blah. So it started with that. And then the second half of the campaign was encouraging those same people to send really heartfelt messages. And it was, a bit of a tearjerker as well. And I thought it was a lovely campaign. But to be honest, where's the upside? Is that an effective use of social capital, or is that a positioning thing? Is it just purely for PR? I don't know. I think the jury's still out on that one.
So talking about social capital from that perspective, one of the big areas for me is definitely around reviews and recommendations and allowing the consumer to make those types of comments and what perception that plays on a prospective customer as well. So we know that reviews and recommendations are important. I don't think anybody can deny that that's a behaviour that we have, and behaviour dovetails into all of the trends that we're talking about today. So when it comes down to a review, we can see that consumers want between 4 to 6 reviews of a positive sentiment to have a positive opinion, or 4 to 6 negative reviews to have a negative opinion. We don't need 50 reviews saying exactly the same thing to form that opinion. It's a between 4 and 6 number. So keeping that in mind, do we think that reviews are still one of the most authentic ways for brands to communicate their service, their offering, their products, and what problems they're actually solving? Do we think we're past that point?
I think that, so I travel for realestate.com.au probably about 3 days of the week. I travel Australia, and one of the packs I deliver on is mastering reviews to get into the lounge room for real estate agents. Now, 55% of all Australians now will not make a decision on a product or service without reading a review online. That's the truth. And we've gone from a world of word of mouth to word of mouse. That's just what's transpired. Have a think. When's the last time you did something? Did you go overseas? You know, did you go to a restaurant? What did you do? Googled it, look for reviews, and then you look for what? You look for the good, and you look for the bad, didn't you? Because we're socially conditioned to want to know our best and our worst experience. So it's not actually bad reviews that are doing you damage, but the way in which you do respond to them. If you want to build a brand online, creating raving fans online and offline is now critically essential. And realestate.com.au has just launched its brand new review platform that we have really workshopped into this space, because consumers were literally knocking on our door saying, provide us with reviews. Now, the problem with the review landscape, and I think we had a chat around this, is it's really easy to fudge, right? And Google has certainly made that more and more easy. It takes me 5 minutes to set up a Google account and slam your brand online, you know. It also means I can set up a Google account and set up fake reviews that say that you're good. So there has to be, I guess, in that earned media, the believability. Like, is it actually true what you're building behind there? And looking at how you can engage that as a brand to fuel more leads into your business by real, authentic, earned media, not bullshit media.
Absolutely.
So that brings up, again, we're talking about trust and authenticity. That brings up the role of organisations like Choice, who have the trust of consumers, who have valid tests, who are consistently out in the marketplace testing products. So really, I think that's, that sort of independent ratings and review association or organisation is one that's really important, because it is all around trust when you're looking online for reviews. I think the other interesting part of it too is, brands like mine, Optus, we are almost living and dying on the NPS. So that's something that we're always focused on. Who are promoters, who are detractors, and that's something I think just will continue in terms of being measured on consumer sentiment.
And I've got to admit, as quickly as Imogen can set up a fake account, so can your competitors. Yep. So if you're looking for reviews, one thing I'd certainly look for is context. I think that's where a lot of reviews fall over in the recommendations. You can lose context very, very quickly. I have a special needs daughter, and if I see a restaurant review that says, wow, this is so busy, there's kids everywhere, it's really noisy, I go, perfect, book Friday night. We're just going to slot right in. But I'm definitely not about to book my anniversary dinner in the same place. So offer context and look at the context behind what you're receiving. I can't leave social capital without asking a very particular question, which is around the super influencers and the fans. Lush stores, does everyone know Lush? The beauty products closed down their social media in the UK earlier this year and made the big and very brave announcement that they're going to allow their super fans to do their marketing online, i.e. in the social space. And I just thought, what a short-sighted approach to putting all their eggs in the superfans basket. Claudia, what do you think around this topic? Do you think that was a safe strategy? Are we putting too much emphasis on the superfans?
Immediately I would think, oh my God, that brand is losing control. I don't know how much Lush has spent over the years on brand marketing. That's obviously a topic we're going to be talking about a little bit later. But, you can risk your brand within a very short time if you lose control of a platform like that. So to me it just says, danger, Will. Danger.
And Facebook's trying to get rid of that world. Like, it's got a mission to do it, right? I mean, I've been travelling for a year now, and on that, I arrived in Adelaide, I was really late, and I got up the next morning, I was due to present to the next day, and my phone just exploded because likes have gone. Facebook wants to make it a real place for everyday people to communicate on, not influencers in that world and that artificial world. And they're really cracking down on that, bots and everything.
Bots and everything will come up a bit later. So social capital, has anyone got a question for us on this topic before we move on to the next dovetail? Awesome. Well, keep your hand up and we'll get to you eventually. Our next area is video, and I don't think that we can really separate video by channel, which is why I picked it as my second key trend to be talking about. We're talking vertical video has now entered the market, Instagram TV. We're looking at personalised videos, the authenticity of videos. We're looking at video consumption. We have over 85% of consumer online traffic actually looking at videos, user-generated content videos. You can't really ignore it. So when we were briefing for this session, one of the things that I was reading about was very interesting, and it said, can video actually be branded, entertaining, useful, consumer-generated, all at the same time? Do you think that's possible? Does anyone want to nod?
Nods? No?
Awesome. We want to test this theory because we found something like this. Let's take a look.
Luck. He's off. Looking good. Stop! Pull your feet in! Oh, bouncing. Oh, whoa! Is he all right? Oh, no way!
Do you think that's entertaining? Yeah, awesome, because we did. Was it useful as of yet? User-generated?
Content or ad?
Is he all right? Oh, no way! Yes!
Sean, you want that? You want that?
So our answer was yes. You can have user-generated entertainment and branding all at the same time. But I see few and far success stories with this as well. But it does take a piece of user-generated content and a brand to look at it and say, what could we do with this? How could we build on that? It doesn't happen as naturally, perhaps, as something like that. So my question, Imogen, what have you been experiencing with video content on social channels, branded and user-generated, or you can use an and/or statement in that?
So the key is here that created inspiration or entertainment, right? And it went viral. It had a 12% uplift for Polo, and it was a huge part of their earned media campaign. Nobody knew how big it was actually going to go. It was picked up by like the Footy Show. They ran it as the Idiot of the Year, and like it went insane. And what they picked on here is a key video strategy. So as a former broadcast news journalist, yes, I did used to read the news, Imogen Ball, 7 News. As a former broadcast journalist, video is something so close to my heart. And it's also the hardest medium to get right because video is made up of layers. You know, you take a photo, you can filter it, Photoshop it. Video is layers from your voiceover to your talent to your actual, music that you're going to use. And all those layers combined together create great content. Where we get it wrong is we try and make video content look like an ad, like a highly overproduced ad. And it's in the moment content that wins over highly produced content. I'm working with a man tomorrow actually called Dick Slider. Now, Dick is taking the piss out of real estate agents, and if you're not sensitive, look him up online. He's a former actor, and I was called by John McGrath to go and visit him. And Dick just absolutely takes the piss out of real estate agents. And he's building a following rapidly, up to 3,000. I also work with the most followed agent on Instagram in Queensland, who posts only stuff about being a branded wanker, to be honest, is what he does. Because that's what real estate agents do, right? Remember all that stuff, fast car? Well, Dick takes the absolute piss out of it, including his name, Dick Slider. And he gets video right. And his engagement is really high. So I'm not saying let's all go jump into a tyre and roll down a hill today, unless you really wanted to. I think we could create some great content there. But I'm saying that video is not around producing ads on Facebook, because if you do that, you will instantly lose your audience.
But I think you've just hit on the nub of this, which is what is right for the audience, because not the Darwin Awards equivalent is going to apply to every brand. So I think it really needs to be horses for courses.
Yeah.
And there might be a luxury brand that needs those rich production values because they're selling either a very high-priced good or they're selling to the luxury end of the market. So to have something like that is just not appropriate.
Not the right.
Yes.
And it's defining your audience, right? Direct response copy on social media is real. Are you writing to your audience? Have you ever looked at the little hamburger in top of your Instagram and taken a look at the analytics? Because if you choose not to write to your audience, you are now more than ever going to get deleted from Facebook. Facebook will... Mark Zuckerberg ran an 8-week global campaign last year telling the world he was going to get better, that he would stop breaching privacy data and he would get better, right? And the only way he does that is reduce ads. We've got big business, small business, right? So totally agree. And it comes down to who is then your target audience, because we can do that through Facebook.
And we've got another challenge with videos. We've got an attention span of 1.7 seconds now in digital to keep someone's attention. It was 3 seconds. It's declining. So what on earth is it that we're going to do in 3 seconds and under, in my opinion, that has production values that are worth paying for? We've got smartphones that offer production. Do we need high-level production values unless you are Optus on TV? That's one of my questions. But Instagram TV and vertical video, you can't ignore what's happening with vertical video. The change has been significant. Hopefully you're all aware of the ratio change that happened in Facebook last Monday as well. So we're now at a 4:5 ratio. Shorter, meaning that we've got more ads in our feed than ever before. We need to have greater cut through. You've got 1.7 seconds. Emmy, is vertical here to stay?
Vertical video is absolutely here to stay. It is absolutely crucial. And I mentioned before, it does have higher engagement. I talk about thumb-stopping content in my branding sessions. And what I'll talk to you about is how do you actually build and create that. And if you think about it, the way that we've consumed media on our platforms has totally changed, right? Our thumbs used to just do this. Now they do this. And that thumb-stopping content, how you engage in that is huge. And I think people are more withdrawn, I personally think, to stories because the no likes were there. And we still like to be a little bit creepy and see who watches them. Like how many of you are in the room that goes, oh, there's my ex. No, just me again? Okay. We want to know who watches them because it allows us to have more control. So that vertical video, I think, is 100% here to stay. We look at the iPhone and how that's totally changed our world. Like, I remember sitting there being like, oh, I'm never going to use an iPhone. I get makeup all over it. Now the thing can't be, I can't even be more than 2 meters, 2 meters away from the thing. I have anxiety.
You brought it on stage?
I need it.
Put mine in my handbag.
I need it. And it's true, we live out of that. And I think vertical video now creates that opportunity for us to capture life and in-the-moment stuff that really people want to see. Yep.
Yeah, but there's, when parallax web design came in, that also presented a new format, which is the 16:9, and you've got those beautiful video, high production values that present so well on a desktop. So I don't think that that's going away either. So it's, again, horses for courses. Where is your audience? Are they out and about? Are they on their mobile? Obviously, parallax doesn't work so well for mobile, but I'm sure that technology will bring up some new formats that we haven't even thought about yet.
And I think one of the biggest trends when we look at video has to be the how-to. Everything is about how do I. Context, again, even when you relate it to search. The most rated video back in watching my career was how to open an iPhone box when the first iPhone was released, and the vacuum sealed sound of that was the most watched video. Or how to find the SIM card in an iPhone when we switched from the Nokia 3310 to a smartphone. So don't underestimate how many times people will be searching for how do I cook perfect spaghetti.
I still do that.
Actually real.
I do that still.
So to keep this going, we can talk about video forever, leads us right into personalisation. And I find personalisation a really tough subject most of the time because I think we're still talking about email with a name in it and we've gone way beyond that. And I don't find that personalised, I find that lazy. So if I'm looking at personalisation, IGTV has certainly led us to a lot of that, being able to follow our super fans, being able to get the information that we want very quickly. But again, in preparing for this research, I saw that there was a particular comment that there's nothing memorable about brand marketing anymore. We're that fickle in our 1.7 second attention span. And I just thought that's so blah. It said, catchy jingles just don't cut it anymore. And it really made me stop reading and think, really? Because I'm going to test that theory too. I think brand marketing is blah a lot of the time. I'm really unimpressed by what I see a lot of the time in the market. It's not storytelling, it's not memorable, it's just noise. So let me know how you go with this. Do you recognise any of these?
Bright as Brad can be, we all enjoy.
Vegemite?
Nobody does it better.
Yeah.
Make those bodies sing. Make those bodies sing. It lasts for hours and hours and hours.
Banana boat, do-dee-do-dee. Psycho.
I don't think the jingle is dead at all. Claudia, is the blanket campaign jingle approach really dead in the water?
Oh, look, I certainly don't think so, because how else are you going to help build your brand? We were talking again about authenticity, and I think this, whatever we talk about, there's got to be authenticity and trust at the basis of it. Otherwise, who's going to buy, or who's going to repeat buy anyway? So no, I think the brands still need to invest in the jingle, in the story, in all those customer touch points that make the brand message sing, rather than memes and that sort of transitory content. I don't think that will fly.
I think that the meme, though, is the digital version of the jingle. I feel like you've released a jingle and the memes come out thick and fast, and that is your super fan mentality right there. The brand will do the talking.
But it disappears, though. It's transitory. So how do you control that message?
And maybe we don't.
Well, maybe that's another thing.
Imogen, when it comes to personalisation, obviously automation and technology play a pretty big part in marketing, and data as well. When is personalisation acceptable, and when are we crossing the line into creepy?
I think it's so funny with personalisation. Obviously, like remarketing and retargeting is huge now across the world, right? And I was sitting with someone, I was explaining to a client exactly what that is, going to somebody who's like a digital dinosaur that just doesn't understand anything focused around digital. There's a little pixel and it sits here, and then we collect the information and we send it back to you. And she's looking at me, I still don't get it. Anyway, she finally got it and she just went, that's really creepy. And I went, it kind of is a little bit, but it depends on the user, right? Because that kind of branding now is huge, because as Facebook feed becomes more cluttered, are you actually being useful to me? Do I want to see that ad? And if I do want to see that ad, I'm going to engage with you. If I don't, I'm going to get rid of you. Another thing is around personalisation is, I think, remember, Val, you were talking about skincare cream and, how skincare, we use it every day. At a certain point, it should run out. What if someone retargeted or remarketed you? Like, you purchased the product here today. Well, it turns out the pet industry has done that really, really well. Now, I don't know if you love your pooch, but I'm about to tell you about mine, Pickles. She's my world. Now, Pickles goes down to, the pet parlour, and she gets her little worm and flea tablets that I get. And I go in and I purchase them. And I get an email 3 months later from their database saying, your NextGuard Spectra is going to run out. Even Tesla is now moving into pets. They've got a whole thing where the dog sits in the car and it sets a certain aircon or the temperature at a certain point and notifies people around the car, yes, the dog's in the car, the owner's on its way back. So the pet industry gets personalisation really right. I've also seen and been retargeted with my name on a handbag. And I went, that's really weird. I didn't like it. I don't know why, but I was like, you got my details and you put it in a personalised bag. So it's finding a balance of making it useful to the consumer or whoever's using or watching that ad. And then it's also finding a balance of not being a total creep.
Absolutely.
I think Netflix does personalisation really well.
Yeah. That's a great example, actually.
Yes, because, so I might watch something and then they'll, a couple of months later they say, based on what you watched previously, you might like this, which is great. But my daughter also uses my Netflix account, which means that I get things like about, what do teens watch? I don't even know what they watch,
Well,
but
I'm apparently
like Sabrina,
a Barbie addict.
So that there is the potential, even though I think Netflix is great, there is the potential
For it to go wrong.
very easily.
We've all been there though, are you still watching? Yeah, absolutely. Like binge watching those series for hours. Yes, we're still watching. I'm still that person. Yep.
So when I see personalisation work really well for most businesses, it's always based on a previous history or a previous purchase, previous interaction. I think what we need to start looking for is some off-search activity as well, and looking at off-social activity and trying to draw a lot of those relationships together to say what would the consumer or the natural path to purchase look like. And if you were here before lunch, there was the personas presentation, which was terrific. And we use personas all the time to be able to create the right key messages for our audiences based on what their previous purchase history or behaviour might look like, and including search behaviour. So I personally love the personalisation when they get it right, and I equally find it a horrific experience when they've completely missed the mark. And I can share an experience that I had with Qantas. I was a bit mortified because I think it was a glitch, because I really didn't expect it from Qantas. And that was when I was logged in and looking for flights, it actually asked if I'd like to become a Qantas frequent flyer member, which I have been since 1998. So I'm like, oh, come on. We've had 20 good years together. And really, you're serving me up a sign-up membership? You just got knocked off the perch of awesome. And I'm hoping it was a glitch, because otherwise I was just... I thought, shit, if we're at that point with Qantas, I'm done.
We're all done.
Yeah. So, Claudia, personalised messages making brands and helping them reap rewards. Is it loyalty, or is it cross-selling, upselling? Where's the biggest opportunity?
Well, I think there are opportunities in a number of areas, but the first, which I've seen, is around predictive analytics, and I think that's an area that we're just really starting to get into. What is the next best action? So if you've got someone ringing in on the call centre, they might want an upgrade, they might want to get a new plan. So the predictive analytics will assist there. So I think that's something that is only just starting. It's still very, very nascent. But what worries me just generally about personalisation is data analytics and just how bad Australian companies are at it. I mean, there was an article I was reading which said that in terms of data analytics, Australian companies suck, and I think that is right. We don't. Companies are still coming to grips with it. There is, we don't have enough people. There's not enough data analysts. Certainly, the resourcing and the storage aspects of data is not well understood. You've got multiple systems that need to talk to each other. So, how does that work? So I think it's really challenging to say, for personalisation to work effectively when we've got all those barriers to start off with.
That's such a good point, because you've also mentioned a few things that we'll be talking about in the rest of the session. Marketing technology and data and privacy is coming, and we'll try and keep that one a little light as well. But I'm going to flip to our next subject, which is all around voice search, voice and audio search. And now I was hearing Tony earlier mention that by next year we're looking at 50% of our search activity actually being voice activated. And we've got different devices in our households now. It is allowing for personalisation. I can tell you now that the tallest man in the world is 2.7 metres. Thank you to my 8-year-old son for asking that while I make lunches in the morning. I love our voice search capabilities, and as I mentioned, my special needs daughter can be understood by our Google Home. I find that absolutely fascinating. It can't understand my very heavy Greek accent mother, but it can understand my daughter, and it's really been an eye-opening experience. But are we using it to the best of our capabilities? So I can see different accents finally being accepted. That was something that was talked about earlier, how multicultural our country is. But what are we seeing here when it comes to reading better rather than reading louder, reading better and reading our contextual search activity? Where are we going with this, Imogen?
The first thing that you need to do is, if you've got a grandpa or a grandma, get them a Google Home and just watch the pain that they go through. It is absolutely hilarious. Have you ever, if you haven't looked it up, it's called like My Goo Goo, and this grandma's scream, "My Goo Goo, Goo Goo," right? It's like insane. So definitely go home and watch that. You know, Google came out and just said in the States that, and as Australians, I guess we often refer to that as a part of our sort of ecosystem and landscape. They came out and said, oh, well, 1/3 of searches are now done by voice. And I kind of laughed, and realestate.com.au obviously went on a tangent with me about voice training and that sort of stuff. The only thing I use my voice thing for is to put a timer on in the kitchen. Like, I just like, how long, hey Google, set a timer for 3 minutes, or however long HelloFresh tells me I need to bake that for. But, you know, I do think there is a need for voice moving forward. If you go overseas, like my husband and I just went on our honeymoon, and I found it really weird. Everyone was voice texting. I'm like, that's so strange. Like I don't know, do you guys voice text? Any voice texters in here? Oh, okay, I'm out of date.
No, I do.
I find it really strange to like voice text someone, but that is, I guess, a transition to how we're moving into a media field. You know, we are getting more and more wanting to be, I guess, more lazy with how we use media.
This one's definitely for you, Claudia. We go back some time when interactive voice recognition first started. So that's your IVR services, i.e. most people just call them the robots on the other end of the phone. So pick option 1, option 10, hit 0 for reception that never seems to answer. And we I guess, worked in this space when Big Brother was around the first time, if anyone remembers that. Am I saying how old I am?
Are you saying how old I am?
Yeah,
Thanks, Dad.
we're in this together. So voice recognition, we've been crying out for human interaction. We actually went through this path of automation and technology and make it more efficient, but it became massively frustrating, and we're crying out to go back to humans. So in your experience and coming from our background and seeing voice and audio search come back, is it a line in the middle? Is it going backwards?
Look, I think there are a number of different trends at play here. I mean, when you talk about voice and audio search, you know, it sounds fantastic. And there was some figures I found the other day which said that voice and audio search will comprise 30% of all searches by 2020, you know, so next year. But, I mean, just like you saying, what do you use your Google Home for? I think that, you know, voice and audio search is really difficult because it's a single specific request. You know, what's the weather like in Sydney today? Give me my account balance. It's not really built for the very finely, you know, structured search that we do in text. So I think that's one mitigating factor. The other one too is, particularly because I have had some experience with setting up chatbots and using artificial intelligence. I know we're going to talk about that later, but if we've got time. But the machine learning and natural language understanding is still in its infancy. You know, has anyone had interactions with chatbots recently on a website? Any good? Oh, well done. Which site was it? Anyone
That's
else?
not good.
Yeah, that's not helpful. That's not helpful here. But you know, there are times when you would be interacting with a chatbot, either by text or by voice, and you know, it will come back, "I don't understand you." It was Facebook. Well,
okay.
that's
okay then. You're off the hook.
So one of the key things that I've noticed from a voice and audio search perspective is that when you're searching on a desktop, firstly, you get a whole page of Google's results as your options in response to that search query. When you've got audio and voice search happening, you've only got one response coming back. You don't get the next top 10 answers to filter through from. So the biggest challenge for brands, in my opinion, is how are you going to be the only one search that gets read out by one of these devices? Yeah, you've gone from having 10 possible options on page 1 to just one, and we want to hope that it's you, and then you and your competitors are all hoping it's them. So I think that's a really big challenge that I think marketers are going to face in the next 12 months. So we do have to keep moving because I have already had the 10-minute wind-up. Data and privacy, which is a fairly big headline to be able to cover in a talk like this. Everything is personalised because of data. We were hearing earlier on that we're taking a look at dropping our data and actually going back to our pathways and looking at consumer journeys, personas, to be able to define what it is that data and personalisation should do for us. Privacy is of a huge concern. I'm not going to mention Cambridge Analytica. But there were, at the recent F8 summit, a fairly significant slide that was put up by the Zuck, and 4 of these are all related to data. Imogen, do you think we should be worried?
I think we should be very worried. I don't mean to scare everyone, but I really do think that we should be worried. I mean, we're in dramatic times of change, right? Like, our social media, to see disengagement, and this is so bad, and I know I'm meant to be a digital brand. I don't even log on to Facebook because it's just an ads world to me, and it's not in, and that's quite I want to be Insta famous, don't get me wrong, like for like, follow for follow. But the truth is, we do have to, as brands, be more responsible and data-backed. I guess personalising ads to people that want to see it is going to be key moving forward. If you don't use data, and when I say data, I mean clean data, not just the database that you've got sitting at home that you haven't actually filtered through for 20 years and just want to ping people. It's one of the biggest things I think our company does extremely well, realestate.com.au. So we have 2 products that we use for agents. So to put this into perspective for you, realestate.com.au has about 8.7 unique users a month. Instagram has 9. So we're very much counterparted into the same usership and space. And we very much partner with Google and those big players because we're so quite prevalent in that digital sphere. But the 2 products that we have, one's called Audience Maximizer. Now that's basically where you come on to realestate.com.au, and if you've searched in the last 60 days twice for a certain property, we will then bot you back across the Google display network and pick you up. And that is seeing an increase in engagement for agents. The second one is the selling journey, right? So the selling journey is so prevalent for those that, has anybody here sold their properties? I'm sure there's people in the room that have. You know that journey starts a long way before you even begin. So we're now assessing and analysing our clear data and looking at how we can actually pick up and identify if you're a seller. For example, visiting our sold section, claiming your property on our site. Watching that journey begin and analysing that data is key, because then we can serve information relevant to that person that wants to see it. And then realestate.com.au becomes a trusted and valued brand.
Yeah, if I can jump in, I mean, again, I work in a very highly regulated industry, being telecommunications. So data privacy is extremely important to us, and particularly when the government has already signalled their intentions to completely review what is happening around data, and I'm sure most of you would have...
Digital inquiry.
Yeah, the digital platforms
You guys all know
inquiry.
about the digital inquiry that's just come out? If you haven't, I really would recommend
You need to. Yeah. So there was the final report was issued about a month ago, and what is designed to do is really harmonise Australian regulations in line with what's happening in Europe with the GDPR. But what is interesting with the recommendations that are likely to come out by the end of the year is to really analyse things like what data is protected. Does that mean that your IP address is protected? Because we've got data matching. Is your browsing history protected as well? So what does that mean? And I think that those implications are really important, because they're going to significantly change the way that marketers market, store information, send out notifications, get explicit consent. It's a big issue.
It's a very big issue, and both Claudia and I are expert advisors for the International Social Media Association, and by delving into privacy, into what the Zuck's letting out or not letting out, was very interesting. We are people within this industry that are heavily involved in the legislation and regulation and putting the best codes of practice forward, and yet we couldn't actually clearly understand what our privacy settings were allowing other people to do with our data, let alone Facebook or third parties, but even our own friends and connections and brands involved as well. So we looked at that and thought, jeepers, if we are feeling lost in the language, how does the average consumer even work this out? And then 2 days later, London has exploded with a few pop-up cafes to help you understand your privacy settings in Facebook. It was very much a sign of the times. It's like when Facebook takes out a pop-up store, you start to take a little bit of notice. I will keep going because we have less than 5 minutes. We are never going to finish 9 topics, but that's okay. We left the boring ones till last. Conversion optimisation. Now, I've run lots of conversion tests over my time with lots of different businesses, and it's certainly an exciting area of marketing for me because you can measure those results pretty quickly. Imogen, the real estate market, I'm aware of it obviously, but the audience might not be. The consumer journey for listing a property, buying a property, choosing your vendor is quite drawn out. It's over 12 months from making a decision at your kitchen table. What's REA doing in this space to help that journey along using CRO?
We're doing a lot when it comes to conversion optimisation. So we're obviously moving into a lead generating platform for agents now, which is called our Agent Match section. But the average Australian moves around every 7 years, which is quite a big time to be moving. And I don't know if you know, if you have bought and sold, it's a very confusing time in your life. So conversion for us has been critical. So, you know, the latest data science says if you reply to someone within 5 minutes, you're 100 times more likely to convert that lead. But then we also look at that and think about the robots, you know, and like I hate robots. I hate being on a chatbot and someone instantly replies. You're like, that's just crap. That's not even a person. But we've certainly moved into a space where we're organising our leads. So, for example, if we send you out a seller lead and you look to get 3 agents in, if that agent hasn't contacted you in 30 minutes, we'll be on the phone to you. Someone from my team will be on the phone to you, hammering down the phone. And again, back to those products, those remarketing products and helping them. But one of the biggest things that has the highest engagement, we have 24 million app launches a month at realestate.com.au. We've just launched our lifestyle content. And when you kind of reach all those facets from, you know, remarketing, lead conversion, optimising your leads, you tend to keep consumers on the journey. And now we're 3 times 0.2 more than any other property place even near us. So like our competitors like Domain, we almost have double size of the audience because of that.
Yep. Do I need to wind it up, Tony? I do.
Wrap it up.
Our last 2 key topic areas were around AI, and hopefully you've heard enough about artificial intelligence that our 6-minute time slot for this won't add too much extra to your learning, we hope. And the last section after this was all around marketing technology, and there was one statement I would like to make around marketing technology before we hand back to Tony, and that is we're seeing a huge consolidation. We've got over 7,000 pieces of MarTech available in the market these days. What we don't have is qualified individuals to run every piece of those technologies. So they seem amazing. We pay exorbitant fees for these things, and then we don't even use them for maybe 25% of their capabilities. And we also then throw a random individual in the company to go, oh, you're now responsible for that. And you know what? If you choose to leave, shit, we've got no one else that knows what's going on. But we've got this awesome 12-month agreement. Consolidate. Get it right. Yep. Work out where your crossover is. There is way too much crossover. A lot of these techs do exactly the same thing. What I'm actually doing a lot in my role at the moment is reviewing people's business practices in technology and telling them where they're about to save maybe $500,000 just by not duplicating what the MarTech's trying to promise. So if there's one thing that you take out of MarTech in one slide, that would be it. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining me here today, and I hope you guys found this useful. You can catch us afterwards.